Good evening. My name is Katrina Messenger, and welcome to our Dark Moon message. Tonight, I want to share with you a model that we in the Order of Elemental Mysteries developed with an organization called White Awake. Eleanor Hancock, the executive director of White Awake, asked for our assistance in developing a spiritual model of engagement for her anti-racist programs that was based on a pagan perspective. We co-developed the pagan model that I will discuss briefly tonight. The pagan model we developed is based on the four elements and correlate the aspects as air, study, fire, praxis, water, ritual, and earth, embodiment. Study and praxis comes from my experience in working in social justice movements for over 50 years. Eleanor added ritual, but she knew something was missing. The final piece, embodiment, comes from the liturgy of the order and the Reflections Mystery School. So let us begin with air. In the early years of my activism, it was all praxis, what we would now call protesting, marching, rallies, and civil disobedience. When I entered Howard University, I was impressed with the studious nature of the core activists on campus. First, I noticed that the same set of people were involved in some shape or form in all of the effective actions on campus and citywide at other campuses. Where I attended the public meetings, they were always looking for young people and elders to join the various steering committees. And within those steering committees, posted often on the wall, were serious lists of books and authors that folks needed to study, not just read casually. Programs were held frequently with the aim of educating folks about our history and what was happening all around the world. And they often shared the importance of study with all of us young activists. And here we are today with a broad movement based on Black Lives Matters, climate change, healthcare, environmental justice, reparations, the return of native lands, defunding the police, and abolishing the concentration camps and ICE. And we have some of the most well-read activists ever on the streets, taking the time to learn about white supremacy, patriarchy, capitalism, colonialism, and the actual truth about this country's history is key to becoming allies and ultimately co-conspirators in the struggle for justice and freedom. Wading through all the misinformation and propaganda can be exhausting, but groups such as White Awake are making a serious dent in the re-education of white folks to the reality and deadly history of white supremacy and capitalism. We, as practitioners of magic, have a similar need for study. Too often we settle for beginner level skills when what is needed at times like these are mature practitioners with skills, experience, and talent that can make a difference where they are most needed. We need healers, singers, and drummers on the front lines. We need hedge witches making brews, and we need shamans finding soul fragments for all those who serve our community. We need folks at the top of their game, and continuous study is the key aspect that makes a real difference. Next up is fire. Marching, yelling chants, carrying signs, and reading all the position papers handed out everywhere were some of my most enjoyable memories from my teenage years. We were literally dancing in the streets. We were just so in love with our movement. What is odd is that we seldom met such resistance in our city streets as the folks advocating nonviolence down south faced regularly. The police up here were far more deadly when they could isolate you. Today's realities are really disturbing when the cops don't seem to care, even when they're being videoed. We have come full circle with the amount of police and other law enforcement officers' level of violence against lawful protests. The recurring theme is to convince regular folks that it's too dangerous to join in various protest movements. But there are many, many levels of praxis. Everything from sending money for bail, collecting food and water for folks in need, handing out masks at metro stations, testifying at public hearings, writing letters, making phone calls, double checking the facts on items posted in Facebook, organizing a study group, teaching your children about racism, planting a garden, or making art. All of these are not only needed, they are critical for our collective success. In the realm of us practitioners, we really need to focus on supporting and or building those systems, organizations, and capacities that will be critical within the future we are working to create. Each action can then become a spell working that pulls us collectively forward. This is the work of magic, a praxis rooted in the future. And now for water and ritual. At one time in our ancient history, we humans believed that some rites were so important that we would pause wars in order to gather together and be at one with the divine. All over this planet, in every human habitat, we rise with the other diurnals and greet the sun. And when someone dies, we weep for them. We also weep at weddings. We raise the pitch of our voices as small babies and play peekaboo. Ritually, we are often more alike than different. We hold hands, we sit in a circle, we raise our hands and dance. We pass the cup, we pass the plate, we toss flowers and we sing. It is within these symbolic gestures that lies the germ of ritual. In ritual, we encounter the divine collectively and make room for it in our lives. Rituals are where we acknowledge our pain, confusion, and despair. It is where we can laugh with tears in our eyes and dance with a broken heart. It is how we welcome our newborns, elevate our elders, and remember our ancestors. Rituals can be small, like a petal laid on a rock at the beginning of our day. Ritual can be complex, like the 3-day arc of the Eleusinian mysteries. It can be seasonal, like Mabon, Ash Wednesday, and Ramadan. Or it can be timely, like the arc of rituals held at each of the Between the World conferences. Raising our work toward the divine is crucial in our engagement with the work. We need to bless our tools, our shoes, our instruments, our bodies, our homes, our workplaces, and our path. And we need to bless these things in a space where we have invited the gods to join us. Our patrons and co-walkers can and will join us as we march, picket, tend, comfort, and plant. All we need do is ask. Earth and embodiment. I often speak of embodiment as grounding your values into your lived life. It's not enough to expose virtues if they are not self-evident within your life. If it is not self-evident, it is meaningless chatter. We need to pull all those values into our bodies and into our lives and into our work. And this is where the rubber meets the road. Call yourself an anti-racist? How would anyone know this about you? How do you use that orientation in your life? Call yourself welcoming of LGBTQ+? How would we know this about you? You believe all people are worthy of respect. Do your children know this about you? How about your neighbors, your coworkers, your family? You believe the earth is sacred? Do you treat yourself, your flesh, as a sacred temple? Or do you denigrate your own body by comparing it to false images fed to us in the media? Do you proclaim that we should listen to women while ignoring your daughter, your sister, your wife, or even yourself when the truth is too painful to hear? We must learn to walk our talk day in and day out, one step in front of the other. We need to speak up about what we know is true, even if it is uncomfortable, difficult, and with folks we fear to lose. We need to start living our lives as if it matters that we are here. And that is the essence of embodiment. You are here in this realm for a reason. Find out what it is and get on with it already. And then how do we integrate this? How do we bring this all together? Well, I've talked about the four aspects: study, praxis, ritual, and embodiment. Now, they're not meant to be done sequentially. There's no sequential aspect to it. You can begin with all of them simultaneously. Let me give you an example. You can start reading a book and sign up for a wide awake class on Monday. Place the next social justice task force meeting on your calendar on Tuesday. Discuss a ritual idea with your local priestess or minister on Thursday, and still have time every morning to practice meditation for 10 minutes. And voila, you're on your way. What is important is finding balance within your own life, figuring out what level of study, praxis, ritual, and embodiment that you need to engage in. This is one of the ways in which you figure this out for yourself. Figure it out within your life. Because face it, the world out there is continually to getting crazier every day. And frankly, there is nothing you as an individual can do about it. That's not how it's changed. You either join in with others in the good fight, or you build the resources we will need when the future arrives. Those are your choices. Being engaged with the world at the level you are capable is all that the world is asking of you. Maybe later, I'll talk about capacity building for individuals and communities. But for now, I am asking you to wake up from the nightmare, put on your big girl panties, and let's get to work. I'm now open for questions or comments. Well, Angela, if you have any questions. I see some of the comments now. Melissa, I'm pretty sure you have some big girl panties around there somewhere. How can we find ways to both join in the fight and build resources? Yeah, that's a really good question, because one of the things that I would hope we could think about, if that we're not in a position to be on the front lines every day, what can we build that can build for the future? And one of those things is to see what concrete things do our communities need access to. One of the things that we've been talking about for years here in DC has been the issue of food security. And looking into food security, looking at the state of our farmers markets, how many folks are engaged in urban farming, other issues such as those is a really good question. But another issue to look at is our water sources. I know that we in the order are looking at doing some healing work associated with our water resources. Also looking at laws and what things we can get done in policy areas to help for a better tomorrow. And start looking at budgets. I know we used to have a progressive coalition who used to propose alternate budgets every year here in DC. But there are lots of things we can look at. It's relatively easy to install, say, for example, solar panels here in DC. But what we don't have is the ability for those who do install solar panels to be able to use them when the electricity is off for everyone else. That seems like a wasted bit. Something about changing policy around that might be helpful. Also, how we can build in community resources around solar energy and solar um, power might also be an interesting thing to look at. One of the things you would look at is what are some community needs and what do we need to make, what do we need to do to make sure those things are there, are ready and working when the time comes. I got a question here of how not to tie myself in knots about the meaning of at the level that you are capable of. Well, one of the things that I'm talking about here is balancing it. It should fit in your life. And so I'm always cautioning my students to be careful about adopting as an expectation like an hour of spiritual practice every morning. That's too much. It should fit within your life. And so I usually advocate for things such as 10 minutes of a practice and just fill in practices throughout the day. Maybe you meditate in the morning while you're still fresh. And then maybe when you're walking or riding or whatever else that you do to get around in the city, you can use that to do things such as run your chakras or recite some mantras. But to keep them simple and that they fit into what you're already doing, that you don't have to set aside time, that you can do them while you're in the process, either moving between or amongst the other activities in your life. And then finally, when we look at how do we blend in things such as praxis and study, many of us either listen to music or listen to books or have books we read. We can add different books or sign up for different types of classes, like the ones I'm recommending with Wide Awake. There are other ways to get information besides reading the popular novels. And this is a time where we really need to understand the history of this country, and we need to understand the systems that are in place here in this country. And yeah, you do need some time to escape from it all. And that is part of the embodiment of that practice. You have to take care of yourself in order to be a good practitioner of this work. But you should be able to find places and things that you're already doing that you can do with intention and do with while bringing your values forward. I want to ask about favorite technique for realignment after one's fire goes out. Yeah, that was a frequent problem for me in the social justice movements. We just kept burning out. And the problem was we only had study and praxis. We didn't have ritual and embodiment. And so we tended not to have rituals that brought us back to ourselves or that requested the assistance of our ancestors and gods. And those are one of the places that you go to. I like to go to some of the dark goddesses and basically just ask them to hold me and to help me to heal and grow. The other part of embodiment is getting proper health care and getting a good enough sleep and good food and lots of water and really pacing yourself as far as what is needed from you at any given time and taking time off, getting yourself a break, for goodness sake. We would have never thought that was something we should have thought of when I was coming up. All the older folks, they were just, walking, they were walking wounded. And many of them wound up having tremendous health problems as a result. I myself am dealing with some health problems. And so the issue is, how can we find a way to take care of ourselves and that it doesn't become one of the things that gets dropped when things get tough? It's one of the things that we focus on when things get tough. Things are hard. There's so much being asked of me. Everything is urgent. So I better take extra care for my body, my health, my soul, and my mind. It's a different way of viewing the world. It's a different way of approaching the work. Yeah, but taking some time off and having places, that's one of the things you could build institutions and um, capacities for places people can go to take some time off. So there's an activist who has a place where they can rest and renew. Mhm. Oh, find their own way. Yeah, yeah, people need to know that you can join in the collective work, and that sense of helplessness that many of us feel is because we think that we have to do something ourselves to change the world. No, the world is too big for us to change individually. What we do is work with others to change the world. Where the change comes from us is within. We can change ourselves, but the world requires a collective effort. And so you must find others to work with in order to either change the world or to build the resources for the future we hope to build. How do you recommend folks get started if they're not sure where their strengths lie? Well, one of the things I would suggest is to do something you enjoy. If you enjoy singing, then get out there and sing. If you enjoy drumming, get out there and drum. If you enjoy art, get out there and do art. Follow what makes you actually glow inside. That's that thing from Joseph Campbell, follow your bliss. And it truly is. If it calls to you, if it fills your heart, that's where you begin. And there's this Venn diagram we talk about. It's like what fills you with joy, what you're good at, what the world needs. And then the other one is, what do you make money at, right? It's like you find that hot, that juicy spot where all of the Venn diagrams overlap. But sometimes you have to accept where three of them overlap. But you find a place in the world or find something that you can do that feeds you in some way, shape, or form. It may be that you'll have some things to earn money and other things to do your work in the world, but find the combos that come together and make sense. And if you're young, you have a whole lifetime. If you're my age, I'm 64, then what you need is some shortcuts. And that's why you have people like me around to help you figure out what it is that your hidden talents are within you. And then you come see me, katrina.messenger@gmail.com, and we'll hook you up. But the other thing is to really follow your joy, really follow your bliss, and especially if you're in your 20s or 30s, you have time. You're not late. This is part of the work. Is following what gives your heart fullness. Now, it doesn't always make you happy, but it does fill you with joy. And joy and happiness are very different kinds of concepts. And if you don't know the difference yet, you will. Aurelia, you and me both, sister. Eat and sleep well and take care of my body and mind. If I could do all that, I would be a truly mighty sorceress. Well, look at me. I'm doing my part. We are not supposed to be perfect people. That is not the goal, is not for perfection. The goal is completion, that we become totally human. And being human means we are fallible and we are divine. We are both. And if you can accept that you can't be perfect and that you can just be the best you that you are, then you'll find a way. And what you'll do is you'll settle for what makes sense for you, your life, and your body. And as long as it's still giving you joy, then that's all that matters. And you can slow that down a little bit. And that is a really good teaching. Oh, somebody asked if I'll be teaching at Wide Awake soon. I don't have anything in the plans right now, but I was teaching when I got sick earlier this year, and I'm on the advisory board uh, for Wide Awake. I'm part of their the people who Wide Awake has asked to hold them accountable, and it's a very good relationship, and they have very good resources. Eleanor Hancock is an excellent teacher. She does a great job, and she brings in good cohorts. Let's see. I'm going to see if which questions I missed. I can only go. Put this away. Let's see what I missed. Well, the thing to understand is that study and praxis, ritual and embodiment is a way to find balance. The point of having all four is in fact an attempt to bring balance to the forefront. And embodiment could just be simply that you have found a way to find balance, speak your piece, do what you can while meeting your regular commitments. So it may not be as movie-like superhero style that you may be used to, but it'll be effective. It'll be important, and your contribution will be worth it. There's so much craziness. There's so much despair being generated by this administration, by the people in positions of power, that our only way of coping is to stay engaged with the world. They want us to disengage, to allow for the alienation, to feel isolated and alone. And so it is very important to fight the power, so to speak, by, in fact, loving more, being more generous, opening yourself up to the possibilities of the future and building toward it. This is not the time to drink the Kool-Aid. No, 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 no. This is the time to sit down, be at peace and at one with yourself, and meditate. This is the time to read and study, to know as much about the history of this country as you possibly can. And this is the time to take action at the level that you can take action. Like for me, I'm physically challenged. So a lot of my action is what I'm doing tonight. And then finally, make sure you're engaged in some type of ritual, either by yourself or with others. There's a real need to recognize that the spiritual aspect of our lives is what keeps us going. Every oppressed people will tell you that it is the spiritual aspect that keeps them stepping up, keeps them taking care of themselves and each other. I can say as an African American that is what kept us going all these hundreds of years, is that we took all that pain, we took all that grief, and we poured it into our music, we poured it into our art, we poured it into our literature, and we poured it into our spiritual pursuits. And that is what will keep us going to find that future we are hoping to create. If we get bogged down in the nonsense that they keep dumping on us day after day after day, right? There's no way we can imagine a future. There's no way we can build toward that future. And so they're trying so hard, is as if they're showing their hand. They desperately want us to give up hope. That's their game. And so here's your opportunity, right? Your opportunity is to work toward the future you want to see. Build resources for it. If you are able, get out there and take a stand, because that's very important too. That we have to stand against oppression. We have to stand against white supremacy. We have to stand against the Nazis. We can't let them go unanswered. This is the kind of thing that caused a lot of the heartache and horrific activities of the Third Reich, is that the left failed to stand against them collectively, united. We cannot allow that to happen here. But if you cannot stand, then by all means build resources. There's work for all of us, right? No one has to be off of the playing field. There are many positions that are available and open. So please, and what I would say for those of you that are looking where's the best place for you as far as practices to keep yourself going, meditation, by all means. If you're able to engage in some type of activity where you get your heart rate up, that is good too. If you can get someplace and sing with others, that's good. I mean, this, being careful with the social distancing is very important. Well, physical distancing is very important, but open your mouth, sing when you're out there alone. What else? Drink a lot of water, as much as you possibly can. We are water folk. We are made of water. Water is life. Water is us. Drink plenty of water when you can have access to it. And if you're looking for what type of books to read, there are plenty of curriculum lists out there. The books I read as a young person, there's so many more out there now. But A People's History of the United States is an excellent book. There's like I said, you can go to Wide Awake and they have a list of books that they suggest. And there are lots of film clips, historical film clips that you can go and watch as well. There is such a dizzying quantity of material available if you know where to look. And I'm using Wide Awake since I'm on their board to give them a plug. Somebody asked about spiritual practices with your kids. Oh, there's a couple of great books that are available for children. Circle Round is the one I suggest the most. They have activities, stories, songs for every the solar holidays, and even things for some of the moon holidays. If you have children, the easiest thing is just to let them know about the things that are important to you, and light candles or make little puppets or hang and make mobiles or things with symbols from nature. Teach them about the four elements, teach them about the circle, teach them about the celestials, the sun, the moon, and the stars. Have them celebrate the four seasons. Have them reconnect with nature. Nature is our measuring stick. It is our measuring rod for how well we are living in concert with the rest of this planet. If it's not in nature, it is what we consider non-generative. So try to stay on the generative side and teach your children that nature is ultimately our teacher and our family. Yeah, teaching them how to be helpers, somebody said. That's a really good thing. When I was a child, I used to read stories to my younger brothers, bedtime stories. And in one of the bedtime stories, it was about how a bunch of children in the story ran around helping their neighbors and then running away so nobody could see who did it. And we got so excited by those stories that we went out and helped our neighbors all around the neighborhood. We had such a glorious time. And to this day, those of us, the three of us, right now only two of us are still alive, we still enjoy helping people. That was something that happened that could have been just one of those stories that you read to your child tonight. What practices help the most in remaining clear? Well, I mentioned meditation, but grounding, water, drinking lots of water. I also suggest people engage in shadow work and self-reflective practices about getting rid of your own stories and shadow repressions that gets in the way of your clarity, gets in the way of you being able to see people for who they are. You can't very well help the world if you can't see the world properly. And getting rid of those stories and those false lenses and those dissonance beliefs would be helpful so that you can actually be effective in the world. Yeah, sometimes, since it's Allison, yes, what I've given as challenges sometimes to my students is every time they see a certain color that they have to show gratitude, they have to say thank you. I sometimes say, if you see purple, every time you see purple, say thank you. That's a wonderful little thing, because what happens is whatever color I pick or what color you pick, suddenly there'll always be more of it in the world. Isn't that something? Hmm. Yes, hard times require furious dancing. Yes. Toni Morrison very famously said that, with everything going on, now's the time for artists to get busy. Yes, yes, to get to work. Hi, Jill. Any other comments or questions? I'm going to try to do this every dark moon, depending on my health. But I just thought that a message in a teaching about what we should be doing now, especially times hard as this, and that there are ways of handling it and focusing it and thinking about it. Oh, hi, Peggy. It is so good to see you here. Oh, yeah, Peggy is one of the folks I tried to get to race me in my little cart last year. Oh, I love you, dear. Love you. Oh, thank you. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So remember, air, study, fire, praxis, water, ritual, and earth, embodiment. Sarah, what daily practice would you recommend? Well, it's kind of interesting. There are two things I would recommend. One of them is a book by Wendy Palmer called The Intuitive Body. And in The Intuitive Body, she has a practice that she calls the basic practice, which is about breath, um, balance, energy, and gravity. That's a wonderful daily practice. So I suggest that, because that's a really good book on spiritual practice. And then secondarily, the practice that I would suggest is one that's balanced. You find something that works for you. Um, the thing I used to do was to make sure I had a practice that was elementally themed, right? And so I would practice a fourfold breath for air. I would run my chakras for fire. Um, I would do the meditation for water, just allow myself to become totally receptive. And then for earth, I would do something that was physical. Either I would do I was learning Tai Chi, or I would do a sun salutation from yoga. But it is really up to you how would you would like to balance it. You can balance it around the four elements. You can balance it around the three modalities, cardinal, fixed, and mutable. You can look at it as having, like, sometimes I put together something called canonical hours and have part of the day is for air, part of the day is for fire, part of the day is for water, and part of the day is for earth. And I have a little practice in each one. There's so many ways you can do it. Just find something that works with your schedule. Um, Make sure that it becomes something that is easily done, not something that becomes another difficult thing that you've added to your plate. That's the most important part. Oh, I love this. One of the things I miss the most about this time period is having people with me when I'm teaching and talking. And this has been a wonderful opportunity to have time with you. Thank you. Thank you all.